What's up, y'all? It's Teal, and today we're gonna be talking about the Chinese Riddler. Riddler Coup came back and posted a bunch of riddles about various different things since the release of the Teal mask, and they offer a lot of teasers about things we don't know yet about the games. And I wanted to start with a big one, this tease here. So as you know, the cover of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet had 4 symbols on them, which we dived into, but also the DLC had a second set of 4 symbols. This is like the symbol you see in Kitakami. This is very clearly Blueberry Academy, and this is something Terrestrial related, like that 19th type crown they showed us. But this one, we thought maybe it represented the Loyal 3. Well, Coup has told us this symbol looks exactly like the crystal pool in Kitakami. That's what it is. So let's explore what we know about the crystal pool in the games, right? Plot-wise, the only thing that happens is Briar finds something interesting about it, so she's researching it for a while before she leaves. And then 2, there's a crystal clump attached to a Milotic, which we can use and substitute for the Terra crystals, which implies the crystal pool has some connection to Area 0. And the last 2 things, you can very clearly see crystals in the crystal pool that look a lot like Area 0, as well as the music. It has the piano at one part that sounds like Area 0, as well as that choir. The big thing that stands out now that we know this symbol is for the pool is the 3 hexagons, though there's more than just like 3 main ones in here, so maybe the 3 are just representing the crystals in general. It's really cool tweeted this because it shows that there's some lore to the crystal pool that will probably make sense when we go to the second DLC, and they have to explain somehow why Kitakami has a mini Area 0, because it's weird. If you're playing the game, this crystal pool kind of looks like a mini Area 0 because it's inside the top of the mountain, so it even has the walls coming up. You know, stand on top of the cliff above Area 0, stand on the mountain walls here, it's like the same. It's a little Area 0 Junior. But the biggest mystery that doesn't make sense is that, you know, Paldea is Iberian Peninsula, Kitakami is somewhere in Japan. They're way too far away for there to be a Area 0 Junior. But yeah, the first time I found the crystal pool, the immediate theory that came to mind is relating to the history told to us about Paldea. So they only mentioned this like once in the game, but apparently the story in Paldea is that a 1 million year old crater fell into the center of the region, and that's what created Area 0. And while this does sound like a fantasy, like, you know, new people come to Paldea and then just make up a story about the hole in the region, the game did something weird where they gave a scientific backing that dates the Great Crater of Paldea to 1 million years ago. Their exact wording is, research of its geological strata and material composition has shown that the crater is in fact over 1 million years old. And while at first 1 million years sounds crazy, especially since Eternatus, the meteor fell only 18,000 years ago and we thought that was a long time, this is much more realistic than when they mention like the Jigglypuff is from 1 billion years ago. And so, you know, this also brings up another idea of maybe if this meteor really did fall 1 million years ago, and it sounds like Terrestrial was in the meteor, maybe this creates a time frame for us. Maybe the borders of where Paradox Pokemon come from are the time Terrestrial is on this planet, which means if the ancient Pokemon really are from the past and somehow they're pulled into our current time period, we don't know the specifics until the second DLC comes out, maybe this creates a time frame of when all the ancient Pokemon are from 1 million years ago when it first crashed. You know, maybe some kind of distortion happened and a bunch of ancient Pokemon just got frozen in time space, and then in recent years when Saturn Tour do their business, they pull out all those frozen Pokemon. And you know, same thing in the future. Let's say this crater will exist for another 1 million years just so we have the counterparts. But that's not the main topic of this video. If we're to play with the idea that Terrestrial really did fall as a meteor 1 million years ago, what if when this meteor fell, a small part of it broke out and landed in Japan, and that's what the crystal pool is, while the big portion is what turns into Area 0 when it lands in Paldea, which would imply that the crystal pool is a tiny segment of Terrestrial's power, which would make the crystal pool a mini Area 0. And just to make sure, I looked at the Japanese version of the game to see how this is described, and it's the same. They say they looked at the geology of it and that it appears to be over 1 million years old. So this seems solid. It really is possible that it's not a fantastical explanation at all to the Great Crater, that Terrestrial really is a meteor that fell to the planet. And this idea that the crystal pool is a part of the original Area 0 meteor also explains why in Kitakami you can see the Terrestrial Phenomenon. You see raid dens, terrestrialized Pokemon. Kitakami actually turned out to be a mini Paldea in pretty much every sense. It also raises the question though of how independent these crystals can be. If Terrestrial isn't at the center of the crystal pool to be creating these crystals, How are they forming? Maybe that tiny bit of Tropius's energy back then was enough to supply this all? But you know, the way I always looked at Paldea and by extension Kitakami is, it's like Tropius is like breathing through the region. The way the crystals infect the region even on the surface, it's like there's something at the center. And this crystal pool being at the center of the region feels like it's breathing through Kitakami too. You know, I imagine the people in Kitakami, I know it's a Japan region, but it seems like they're relatively new or something. I mean, their only tradition we can see in the game is this festival, and then people barely talk about the crystal pool. So either the people in Kitakami are relatively new or they just don't care that much about the terrestrial stuff that exists there. Anyhow, the last thing to talk about this lake, and this is something I have stuff to say for another video, is the rumor that apparently the crystals in the crystal pool allow you to see people who've passed, dead people. And so this has brought up a lot of ideas, like maybe somehow, you know, this crystal pool water was sprinkled on the Loyal 3 Shrine to revive them. You know, that Briar did and then quickly ran off, even though there's no hints of that in game. But this is the only piece of text that gives some lore to what the crystal pool's real purpose is here. And then there's also zombie in the code of this game. Could it be possible that maybe some of the characters you meet in Kitakami aren't actually there? What if Peaches isn't even alive? What if Peaches died 200 years ago and we're just seeing him? Or there's like a jar of crystal pool water on his stand, so it's keeping him alive. You know, according to the Chinese data miner, apparently whoever the zombies are in the game are actual NPCs we can talk to in Kitakami, though we don't fully understand what that means. Can we talk to them right now? What if it was some of the people there? It would just be, oh god, that's kind of weird. It would just be funny, right? If somehow, you know, kind of like the Sylph Scope, you come back to Kitakami, able to pick apart who's alive and not, and like most of the people aren't even alive. It's just a freaking zombie town. I kind of want that to happen. I mean, clearly not everyone is dead. You know, Kieran is very much alive and his sister because they have a grandpa. Unless they're all just dead. Like, you know how freaky that sounds if they have these traditions for like 200 years of wearing the masks on the festival, but they're all dead. So it's a zombie town. They're just celebrating and stuff when no one's actually alive. It's just the memories of people animating themselves. That makes the whole Kitakami region a freaking nightmare. But think about it, right? That would give a weird, eerie feeling to the crystal pool in the center of Kitakami. It's in the dead center and on top of the mountain. It's like the entire illusion of the region is fed to us through that small crystal pool at the top. You know, we freaking go on a field trip with 3 students, but we're like the only alive people there and we have no clue. I'm just messing around with you guys. But I want you guys to think about the whole being able to see dead people thing, because I have a whole video to talk about on that. Anyhow, make sure I'll shank that like button. We have so much more to go on. So I'll see y'all tomorrow. Take care.